when asking people to teach this summer, I was very excited to have someone who is both a pressman parent and also a teacher of Torah in the Los Angeles area. Most recently, Rabbi Pelcovits was working at NIF, the New Israel Fund. Oh, he has one more day. So Monday's his last day at NIF. But after that, he's taking Rabbi Schatz's job. Just kidding. But it's really a privilege to always learn from Rabbi Pelcovits, and he asked me why I was here and said that he was hopeful that I was taking the afternoon off. But really, I wanted to be here to learn from you. So I'll go home and sleep after this. But bechavod, and really just a pleasure to have you.
Is that good for the thing?
Yeah, that's good for the thing. No. But you also don't have to use this. You just have to.
Okay. All right, I'll come up here. It feels very formal to be standing. I'll try to be as informal as I can be. I handed out some photocopies, which I think they're roughly enough, but if you don't have one, ask. Hopefully your neighbor is a nice person and we'll share. I thought it would be fun, I don't know if fun's the right word, to restrict ourselves to looking at the psukim that, I don't know our Baalat Koreh's name. Rosemary, you read Torah perfectly. But to the Torah reading we heard at Mincha this afternoon, so the beginning of Parashat Chukat, and instead of like looking, I called our Torah study the Torah of Torah, but what I meant by that is I want to get kind of meta about the way the laws that are here, which I'm not actually all that interested in the laws as themselves, but how they're kind of thought about by the rabbis in kind of the framework of how they think about Torah in general, how we think about laws, how we think about our relationship with Torah more broadly, and there's a lot of interesting material to play with there. The stuff I have at the beginning, I'm going to take off my watch so I see the time right in front of me, is really interesting and good, but it's like people who are regular shul goers, and by that I mean people who go to Shabbos Mincha are inherently regular shul goers. You've probably seen this material already, whereas the second chunk of stuff I did, which is the stuff on Numbers 19:14 instead of Numbers 19:2, so kind of the stuff that was in Shlishi, is actually maybe a little more strange, and maybe, I don't know, I don't want to say more interesting. So whatever, if you get me caught up and we spend too long on the beginning, I apologize, and I'll zip through that. But let me have a volunteer, in English or Hebrew, whatever you prefer, but really English everyone will understand, to just take me through both the first pasuk there that I gave you and then the Rashi on it. Let's talk about that a little bit. Someone want to have it and who doesn't have something in their mouth and wants to read it, and if not, I can read. Or if you don't want me doing that, Rabbi Schatz, I can read things. Oh, thank you, Alan.
This is the ritual law that the Lord has commanded. Instruct the Israelite people to bring you a red cow without blemish, in which there is no defect, and on which no yoke has been laid. Rashi's commentary. Because Satan and the nations of the world taunt Israel, saying, "What is this command, and what reason is there for it?" On this account, Scripture writes and uses the term chukat about it, implying it is an enactment from before me. You have no right to criticize it.
Okay. So what law are we talking about in the first, that verse and in the first 2/3 plus of our afternoon Torah reading? Does anyone know what that law is? It's the one in those verses. You have Joey, right? Red heifer. Oh, so what's the story of the red heifer quickly? And I'll say it back into the microphone. No. All right, fine.
All I know about the red heifer is that it has, like it says here, it has to be without blemish, so no defect whatsoever.
Yeah. Deborah? Yeah.
It's the first step in the magic potion by which you start purifying everything.
Okay.
For some reason, you need to start with this
Okay.
particular cow.
Okay, so there's this, I'm like, every time a word, an adjective gets used, I feel like I'm playing too much hand here, but whatever, that's okay. You said magic. It's a very, very strange piece of Torah. The first, 13 verses of this week's parasha, of this coming week's parasha. I guess it is now this week's parasha. And it's the ritual that lets not any kind of uncleanliness or tum'ah, it's actually not the right word, ritual uncleanliness, I'm looking for the best word here, but that takes one from that state of ritual impurity to state of ritual purity, is you need this perfect red-coated, it probably means like some kind of orangey brown-coated cow that doesn't have any blemishes, it's burnt, it's mixed with water, it's sprinkled on the people. There's a whole elaborate, strange ritual, and that's the ritual. That's the Zot Chukat HaTorah. This is the ritual law that God has commanded. And then Rashi here has kind of a strange commentary on Zot Chukat HaTorah. It's actually, I mean, it's funny. I want to say it's a famous Rashi, but it's not like Instagram famous. It's like rabbinical school. Yeah, exactly. It's like nerdy rabbi famous. Like this is whatever. If you're going to know one Rashi on Parashat Chukat, you'd know this Rashi. And Alan read it for us, but essentially what it's saying is that I guess Rashi is imagining that one day the Satan, this kind of like evil metaphysical villain, or also just Gentiles who Jews live amongst who might take a look at the Bible will say, what's up with this, right? Just like, what were those words you used, Deborah? What was the word you used? You had a nice adjective for it. Right, it seems like a magic potion, which, what does that imply to us? A magic potion. Make-believe, thank you, perfect. So magic potions don't seem serious particularly. So they'll say it's silly, right? They'll taunt Israel, they'll monin at Yisrael, they'll kind of take judgment down on them. And they'll say, what's this there for? What are you doing this for? And then the Torah uses a different type of word to describe this rule. It says it's a chok. And so the later Chazal, the rabbis of antiquity, kind of divided laws into two kinds of laws. They decided this is a good example of chok, of laws that are kind of like, we don't know why they are. It's what Rashi says, it is an enactment from me. It's just something that capital me means God. I said you got to do this, and you have no right to criticize this. This is one you're never going to know the reasons for, versus the foil for that. Does anyone remember the word?
It's a chok,
Chok versus?
Mishpat.
Yes! I knew Shalashudas Jews were like the knowledgeable people. Mishpat is like what the rabbis presume is like laws that are really easy to understand why you wouldn't do them. So we have a parsha in Exodus, Parashat Mishpatim. And those are the kind of paradigmatic laws that are easy to understand. Like you don't steal. Obviously you don't steal, right? You don't need a Torah to tell you don't steal. You do need a Torah to tell you there's complicated ritual to transfer from purity to impurity. Yeah.
Well, it's my understanding of the Parah Adumah, of the red heifer, is that it is truly unique. It's one of a kind, something that baffled the rabbis, and they tried to come up with explanations for it, and really nothing came up as a good one. And it was the red heifer, the ashes of the red heifer were used to purify if you were in contact with the dead. But yet by using that, it also made you impure. So it was a double whammy of what was taking place. So it's a very powerful and unusual law, and that's why it becomes a chok. It doesn't make rational sense on its face.
Right. There are this is like, they'll play on this idea, Alan, of like Zot Chukat HaTorah. This is like chok, this is law that we don't know the reason for it par excellence, because it's so utterly strange, and you named one of the strange things about it. A part of the ritual is the Kohen, the priest who's involved in this ritual of burning and making this potion, Paula. That's what you said, right? Magic potion. No? I'm whatever. You get to take credit for it. That's fine. This potion. with the ashes, that like they in the ritual become, they don't become the level of impurity that you need red heifer to get out of, but you do hit a level of impurity. It's a very, very strange thing, and it's like Rashi's aware of it, right? I guess that's the piece that to me is really interesting. Yeah, sorry, your name? Rosemary, thank you.
I was wondering the idea of finding the cow, the red cow, and burning to purify. It goes a little bit maybe with the where people were living, because like in Middle East, when somebody dies, the family, they have to throw themselves in the pit with the dead person, or they just envelope the dead. You know, they do a lot of emotions.
Right.
And as they say, like if you're already in the room, somebody has died, you are not pure 1 week. If you are doing all these things, it's too much. So because finding a red cow, it's so difficult. So in a way, they prohibit you to do all those things because the cow can't be fine.
I love this. What Rosemary is trying to do is turn our chok into a mishpat. Does everyone see what I'm trying to say? What the rabbis at least think is they want to divide the Torah and its laws into two categories of laws, rational and irrational laws. But I'm guessing, Rosemary, you are like a deeply rational person. And the idea that there is material in the Torah that's like, you're just never going to find this out. Like you're never, no matter what, would drive you crazy. And therefore there are scholars who have done this, who wanted to like identify a reason for this. So you're saying, wait a minute, let's look at the culture around here. What happens when people die? What are the rituals? We need a structure to help someone, like we do today. We have a shiva that helps carry someone through a loss. Then shloshim, where they enter in a community. We had tonight 3 people who are remembering deceased parents. It's an opportunity once a year to come into the synagogue, tell the story of the person you've lost, even just a small memory like Alan had of his father who he lost when he was a very small boy. We want to rationalize this, and I think that's absolutely legitimate. At least for the classical commentators, this is inherently irrational. I didn't put in, and I'm just going to do this part myself because I'll have 15 minutes left, or not even, before I get cut off. There's a lot. Rashi didn't invent all this stuff. I hope I'm not like blowing up anybody's vision of Rashi. Rashi did a lot. I mean, the fact that one dude living in 11th century France wrote a commentary on all of the Torah, parts of Nevi'im and Ketuvim, and most of, not all, of the Babylonian Talmud is pretty incredible that one human did this. But what he wasn't making up these ideas. He was borrowing. He was a learned person and was borrowing from, often, at least in his commentary on the Torah, from midrashim. And one of the midrashim, one of the classical kind of rabbinic exegetical commentaries, although just an earlier medieval one, is Numbers Rabbah. And I gave you just a little bit of it, but I'll give you a little more context. It's the third source on your sheets. It's the one that says Bamidbar Rabbah 19:8. It imagines, or it tells the story of. You decide if it's imagining or it's a real story. I think it's an imagined story of a rabbi sitting and is approached by either, it's unclear from the Hebrew, either a Christian, an early Christian who's still living amongst the Jews, or just a heretic who's trying to cause trouble, or just a pagan, and they say to the rabbi, what kind of a religion do you have? This para aduma, it's like imagining either this nations of the world taunting the Jews, saying, what kind of a religion do you have? You get impure and you burn a red cow and you sprinkle ashes. This is absurdity. And the rabbi answers this isn't there on your sheet. This is kind of the preamble to what's on your sheet. The rabbi says to the person, wait a minute. Wherever we live, like the ancient Near East, Rosemary was telling us, when people get whooping cough or whatever, we burn some hyssop under their bed and the smoke and the steam, and it makes them feel better. Why does that work? And the person's there obviously isn't a medical scientist. They say, I don't know. And they say, this is the same thing. I don't know the reason, but it works. And the person is satisfied. And the person leaves, and the rabbinical students, the scholars in the academy, the Talmidim are there, and they ask the rabbi, That's the after he left. I'm just going to read it quickly. His students said to him, "You rebuffed this one with a reed. What's a reed like?" You can't give out the mic. This is a one-word answer, Rabbi. A reed. It's like a thing that grows in the water, and what's it like? It's floppy. It's not particularly tough. It's thin. You could push them away. We're not talking about a lot of work to rebuff someone with a reed. But with a reed, what do you say to us? You can't use this kind of crummy answer to convince us that this law makes sense. And what does he respond? As you live, I'm now onto the second page, it is not the corpse that impurifies. Don't really think that there's anything magic in corpses that makes us impure, and it's not the water that purifies. Rather, the Holy One, blessed be God, said, I instituted a statute. I issued a decree. You're not permitted to violate my decree, as it is written, this is the statute of the Torah. What's he saying to his students? Now you can give out a mic if someone wants to answer more than a sentence. I can repeat it back. Yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry, your name? Sagi. So Sagi has read this commentary and he likes it. Is it fair to say, Sagi? You like this comment. You're saying, don't get too caught up in the practicalities of this. The Torah is there to give us guidance on how to live our lives. This is the way God wants us. It's like a lesson in, is it okay to put words in your mouth, Sagi? To learn humility in our relationship with the divine. That you're not going to understand the answer to everything. This is about submission. It's not something necessarily that we rational, modern, Jews of the conservative movement are particularly drawn to. But it's a stream and it's a path and it's an understanding of what this is about that spoke to Sagi and certainly worked with the students. Unless someone has something. I'm not even going to allow it. We have 9 minutes. I'm going to just give us a taste of the next piece. So the second, we have a very similar another verse, just 14 verses later, which opens almost the same way. Instead of saying Zot Chukat HaTorah, it opens Zot HaTorah. It says, this is the ritual, or I gave you 2 other translations in the middle of the second page. This is the instruction. This is the law regarding when a person dies in a tent. We're still learning about ritual laws about death. Whoever enters the tent and whoever is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days. So it's now introducing not how you get out of getting into the state of ritual uncleanliness, but how you get into this state of ritual uncleanliness. And this fact that it opens with this word, Zot HaTorah, the Torah of Torah, leads the rabbis into all kinds of wild understandings of what this is. And I'm going to give you just one of them that I was particularly drawn to. It comes from the Talmud in Tractate Brachot, towards the very end of Brachot, and there's a long discussion there. The Talmud is often, one idea comes to another idea, and just a train of stream of consciousness ideas. So they're in this kind of stream of consciousness mode of sharing teachings, midrashim, about Kavod HaTorah, about showing kind of dignity and honor to the Torah. And we get this statement there from Reish Lakish. Does anyone know that name? What do you know about Reish Lakish? So Reish Lakish is maybe the most interesting rabbi in the Talmud. I don't know. Right. So Reish Lakish, we don't know if he was a Gentile or a Jew, but he starts his life. It's unclear whether he was a bandit or a gladiator. But he enters the rabbinic academy, and that background is very evident in what he says. He's clearly knowledgeable about things the other rabbis don't know. And so we have this statement about Reish Lakish on this passage, and he says, this is in accordance with the opinion of Reish Lakish. As Reish Lakish said, from where is it derived that matters of Torah are only retained by one who kills himself over it? We only hold on to our Torah if we kill ourselves for a Torah. As it is stated, this is the Torah when one dies in a tent. True, Torah study demands the total devotion of one who is willing to dedicate his life in the tent of Torah. So Reish Lakish sees this passage. What does the passage say? It says, this is the Torah, this is the law, really, of what happens when you die in a tent. But he reads it almost backwards. The tent for the rabbis is a metaphor for the tent of Torah study. They talk about it. We read in the story of Jacob. Jacob was Yoshev Ohalim. Jacob sat in the tent. The rabbis say, what does it mean to sit in the tent? It means you study Torah. So for Reish Lakish, who sees Adam ki yamut ba'ohel, zod haTorah, when a person dies in the tent, this is the Torah, he says, this is what this verse is telling us. You'll only really get true comprehension, true dedication, true relationship with Torah, true retention of Torah by dying or giving yourself over to the point of death to that Torah, because this is the Torah when one dies in a tent. What do we think of this? I'm going to pause here for 1 minute to let someone say what do you answer if you want, and then I'll offer a contrast to it.
It's not really dying for Torah, it's focusing on it. You know, it's like, you know, I'm gonna because I always use the analogy, if you focus, it's like taking a pencil and going flat against the paper versus turning it as a point and through it. You know, you only really make things happen if you focus. My problem is I'm doing 5 things and can't focus on anything right now.
Nice. So what you're doing, your name? Irv. Irv is offering a midrash on Reish Lakish's midrashic understanding of this verse. So Reish Lakish takes a verse. This rabbi who used to be abandoned his old life, used to be a bandit who abandoned his old lifestyle to study Torah, gave up his way of life and invented this new life for himself. He says you've got to die to get for Torah. You've got to give up everything. Irv is saying what it means is focus completely. You've got to give this over to such intense and full focus that you can't hear anything else. With that Irv answer in mind, I'm going to give you one last piece from my sheet, because there's no way we'll get through everything else, and then we'll be done at 8:30. I'm going to share this piece of Torah, which is on the very back of your sheet. I didn't translate it because there didn't exist an English translation, and it got close to Shabbat, and I had another teaching I'm doing Sunday. And all right, so I'll read the Hebrew and I'll translate for you. It's on the back sheet. There's a photo I took, pasted onto your sheet from a great book called Iturei Torah, which is just a modern Israeli compendium of mostly Hasidic 18th, 19th, 20th century comments. And I'll tell you the way, because it's similar to what Irv said, to understand this midrashically. So it's bandits. It's a story about a rabbi named Ephraim Zalman Margaliot, who, thank you Google, I was able to find out a few things. He was a Polish Hasidic rabbi in the late 18th and early, it should have said 19th. That's my typo. So we read that Rabbi Ephraim Zalman Margaliot, Ashir Gadol Haya, he was extremely wealthy. Uvali Skim Rabim, he was a business person with business interests all over town. Aval, but B'sha'ah she'asak b'Torah haya mistager b'cheder limudo. When he would study Torah, this person who was very wealthy and had business all over town, he would lock himself in his room when he wanted to study Torah. V'lo haya nifna l'shum esek, and he wouldn't let the door be opened for any kind of business matter. Pa'am, one time, b'sha'at limudo, at the time of his study, ba'a ishto, his wife came, v'hodiolo, shesochrim gedolim ba'u elav. His wife told him, there are important buyers and sellers who are coming through town. You need to come out and do business with them. If you don't come out and work with them right away, yafsid sikum kesef gadol. You're going to lose a tremendous amount of money. Heshiv Rabbi Ephraim Zalman. He answered to his wife, Adam ki yamut ba'ohel. A person is supposed to die in the tent. B'sha'ah she'adam yoshev ve'osek b'Torah tzarich liot kamo mate lagabe kol inyunim ba'olam. What does that verse mean? I'm telling you now, It means when you're sitting and studying Torah in that tent, in that proverbial tent, and totally focused on it, you need to shut yourself off as if you're dead to all other matters in the world. You need to intellectually, completely cut off your mind. Achar kach, after this happened, kach shenodalo hasikum hagadol shehefsid, when they told him just how big a sum of money he had lost, amar besimcha, he answered with great joy, Baruch Hashem, thank God, sheyometi, that I kind of gave death to, kama alfayim kitarim, so many thousands of crowns worth of money, ba'ad daf gemara, to study a page of Talmud. So this is very similar to what Irv said, to read that metaphorically. The Torah is something we need to not die for necessarily, but be willing to sacrifice for. It's, again, a radical idea. I'd be happy to do a lot more than this, but we're just about at 8:30. If there's one closing question, I'm happy to take it. I'm happy to chat. The next guy is actually really interesting. This is a comment, I love it, because it's from Rabbi Meir Shapiro Milublin, who started Yeshivat Chochmei Lublin, which was the first kind of major Hasidic yeshiva. There had been lots of non-Hasidic yeshivas in Eastern Europe. Shapiro opened the first Hasidic yeshiva in Lublin maybe 15, 20 years before the Nazis came to power. So it didn't last long, but it was enormous. He also was kind of the person who invented the Daf Yomi cycle. And his reading of Reish Lakish is, so he reads the Reish Lakish thing, and then he says, L'chora, imhu memit atzmo, ech uvamai mitkayemet haTorah. He says, if I'm supposed to die for this Torah, how am I supposed to have this Torah continue in the world? This is absurd, right? If anything you die for, inherently you can't transmit. So he has another kind of creative reading it. Ela hakavanohu lechinuch habanim. Rather, my understanding of it is that the verse's intent is that really it means focus. It means focus on education. Misha memit atzmo umisakenet nafsho legadel banav leTorah. A person who really focuses themselves and gives themselves up to the point of endangering their own health to raise their children to study Torah. Az haTorah mitkayemet bibanav. That's how this happens. That the Torah is fulfilled, is by our dedication to education. Ki haTorah machazeret al achsanit shalach. It's like born on this toil that you've put into it. So he has another understanding of it. I wanted to point out that just like I think Reish Lakish, who is someone who gave up one lifestyle for Torah, is saying you really have to be willing to dedicate yourself. This Rabbi Meir Shapiro of Lublin, who kind of came up with a system to try to get more people involved in Torah study, cared about education, and opened the first major yeshiva where real Talmud study was being done by Hasidic students in Lublin in the early 20th century. He was someone for whom education was what you sacrifice, and that's what he did. He sacrificed, a smart guy, he could have done anything else. He sacrificed himself for the cause of education. He saw that as the interpretation. But if I'm going to leave with one more word, it's that we have here a Torah portion that's easy to see as, kind of like, how does this have any point to my life? There's a passage about a red heifer being burned and turned into a magic potion. We have this idea of how impurity transmits in a tent. And you see just how creatively the rabbis thought about this and thought about the thing that was most important to them, which is their relationship to Torah. And I don't know, I hope I introduced both a window into their passion and their love of Torah to this group this evening, and just the idea that we can be really creative with texts and find in them the things that are most dear to us.